Hello, my name is Toby. I sing in a band called Trash Boat, and we're going to be taking a little look behind the lyrics of our latest album, Crown Shyness. So another song I wanted to talk about is the closing track on the album, and that track is called Love, Hate, React, Relate. And that specific title came from a Margaret Atwood book called Surfacing. And I'll talk about where that influence came from a little bit later. But to start with, I have a small confession about the lyrics to this song. Because as some of you may know that have followed the band or followed me personally closely, you may have seen that recently my dog, my Labrador Tom, passed away. He passed away about just over a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. And the song is about him, and I wrote the lyrics for that song at the beginning of the year, about 6 months prior, because the way the lyrics reads, like you'd have thought that he'd have already died when I wrote it, but he hadn't. He was a very old dog and a very big dog, and he had dementia. He had massive problems with his back legs, like he struggled to stand up a lot, and at the beginning of the year he collapsed and he had a bit of an episode, and I thought he was going to die. I really thought he was going to die. It was a very, very serious day, and it was very emotional. Like when he died last week, I've never ever experienced sadness like that. It was the first loss of a family member, and I do consider him a family member because he's been my dog since I was 10 years old, which is just crazy to me. And that was the first loss of a family member that I've ever experienced, so I was just an absolute mess. When I thought he was going to die at the beginning of the year, I didn't really know what to do with myself at the time because I was just very sad. So, perfect time to write a song. So I started to just channel it all into lyrics, and I ended up writing the lyrics for Love, Hate, React, Relate over the course of the next week or two. And yeah, so like there's a lyric that says, "When I picked you up, I didn't know how hard it would be to put you down." And that kind of made it sound like that he was already dead at the time, but at the beginning of the year he had his episode and he pulled through, and he lived another 6 or 7 months or so, and then he unfortunately died last week, which kind of sucked. But yeah, that's a little confession about the lyrics to Love, Hate, React, Relate. So I think they are some of my favorite lyrics on the whole record, because they really came from the heart. That was a lot of the time with lyrics, I sit for a long time and I really have to think about where the lyrics are coming from and how I'm going to structure them. But Love, Hate, React, Relate just poured out. It seemed so easy. And then at the exact same time, I was reading a book called Surfacing by Margaret Atwood. Great book. It's one of those books that kind of trickles along for the first 80%, and then the last few chapters it just goes 0 to 100. And it was a very interesting read, and there's a point where the main character is experiencing a very visceral emotional response to something to do with her husband. I won't spoil the book for you, but or her partner rather. And she struggles to process her emotions, and she struggles to sometimes feel that her emotions are natural and that they are, quote unquote real. And she has a process when something happens that requires, an emotional response. She has a process of emotions that she has got in order, and she goes through those motions whenever she is faced with something like serious like that. And the order of the emotions that she repeats in her head is joy, peace, guilt, release, love, hate, react, relate. And I felt an affinity with that feeling, just that kind of, you don't know whether your emotions are real at some point or whether you're just expressing emotions that you think you should express at the time based on the situation that you're in. I bonded with that idea that it wasn't natural, and that particular string of emotions was just what she felt like she needed to do to save face at the time. It's such an interesting book and an interesting point that the author made, and I just thought that there was a parallel between how I was just so incredibly sad that I thought my best friend was going to die, but at the same time I always seem to question the validity of my emotions whenever I feel them, because it's just like, am I actually this upset about it, or am I just supposed to be this upset about it? That's a battle I have quite often when it comes to feelings. Love, hate, react, relate came together so easily, and there was so much incredible inspiration. And I think in terms of lyrics, I would probably say it's in the top 1 or 2 on the whole album for me. And I hope you guys like it.